Welcome to the Knowing Me podcast. I'm Joanne, and I love to help people rewrite their lives' narratives by revisiting their past and reshaping their today. In this day of Me Too, many have taken advantage of others, lied about, and accused some innocent people for the sole purpose of being seen as a victim and to get sympathy. This type of manipulation from some causes many to doubt the stories of those whose souls have been wounded by deep hurts and sexual and other abuses. Perhaps you have said Me Too, and now you wonder what the next step is, or was it worth it? It is okay to speak out and even very necessary to do so, but what do you do now that everyone knows? For so many, the pain, shame, and repulsion they feel towards themselves and others doesn't change. Just saying that you have been hurt deeply or abused does not heal you. It doesn't make everything right. It is only the door that you have opened to find help and healing. But where do you go? Can you really trust that person? Maybe it would be just as good to go back into that hole you were hiding in before, having the appearance of being alive on the outside while you feel dead on the inside. I did that for decades. Nobody really listened when I mentioned that I was struggling. I remember one time in the church when I was a new Christian, they were asking me to be leader for the girls group. I was 22 years old, so I looked like I was old enough, but I knew nothing of the Bible. I remember mentioning that I was struggling with something and I didn't think I'd be a good leader. And instead of the person, which I would do, I would say, well, can I help you? They just said, all of us struggle, get used to it. End of story right there. And I remember thinking, oh, I can't really share with anybody because they're just going to look at me like I'm weird or, everybody's got a problem. And so I just went back into my hole. I went to the place where I didn't share things intimately with people because of being, again, as I mentioned before, about being afraid of being rejected or hurt. No one really listened when I mentioned things. And I died a little more every day from fear, self-contempt, and an emptiness that I tried to fill and couldn't. I didn't even let God try to fill my emptiness because I was so afraid of being hurt again, even by Him, that I just closed my heart and stoically carried on. Sadly, there are no 12 steps to healing from sexual and other abuses. There is no formula for life or healing of hurts because every person is unique and every abuse or hurt is personal. And no matter the gravity of it, they wound the soul. It is not so much the physical hurts, our bodies heal. It is the relational and emotional wounds in our souls that keep us bound and controlled by the past trauma. We must do more than say, I was hurt or I was abused if we are really going to see changes in our lives and in our relationships. We need to stop covering our wounds with Band-Aids, believing that if no one can see it, then they will go away. And we must have the courage to look at the wound and to see how the infection of our soul wound is robbing us for all that we long for. If I was to go out and fall down on the road, or you in the road, on the pavement in shorts and on our hands and knees, there would be pieces of glass, there would be oil residue, there would be tar residue, there would be dirt, there would be stones in those cuts. And if I was to cover it up, or you were to cover it up with just Band-Aids, people would look at you or me and go, you guys are crazy because that's going to get infected. That's going to affect the way you walk. It's going to affect the way you use your hands. It's going to affect your whole body because the infection spreads to the whole body. And we know that. We will even go to a doctor and let us hurt us so he can clean that wound. But when it comes to our souls, we just cover it with Band-Aids. And it festers in there and it begins to affect everything. It affects how we think about ourselves. It affects how we think about others. It affects how we relate to others. It affects how we think and relate to God. And it is so damaging. And yet 99.99% of the people hold all of that stuff inside. Until we are willing to take the risk to look deep, there will be no healing. We can keep piling on more Band-Aids. We can cover it up with something else. But there will be no healing unless we take that cover off and let God begin to touch those areas. And that's when I talk about knowing me. To be able to heal, I need to know me. You need to be able to know you. You need to be able to say, God, it hurts right here. This incident, this abuse, this word, this phrase, this bullying, this abandonment, this fear. I need you to come to this place in me. And unless we know where we are, unless we know who we are, it's going to be very hard to open ourselves up to the Lord. You and I don't walk the same road. Oh, there's many similarities, but it's not the same road. It is also very difficult to know how long your journey in healing will take. But for the majority of us, it will be a lifelong journey with ups and downs that will at times wound us deeply as we take the initiative to walk towards healing. I would just like to express to you my hope for your coming to this podcast. I pray that you will find a place where you can ask questions, look for answers, where you can be weak or where you can be strong, where we will walk with each other towards a healthier and more abundant life. I do not pretend to know all the answers. In fact, I'm still on my own journey towards wholeness. I too have been abused. I have not arrived, but I am on the way. There is life and hope after hurt. So if you would like to come along with me, I invite you once again. We will be talking about things we struggle with, fears that we have, and finding comfort as we walk towards freedom together. There's another quote from my little book where I keep my quotes. It's by Morris L. West. It is called The Shoes of the Fisherman. And this quote has been so important in my growth, and I keep coming back to it. When I want to give up, I keep coming back to this quote. And I hope that as you hear this quote, this will be something that will encourage you also. Here are his words. Listen closely. It costs so much to be a full human being that there are very few who have the enlightenment or the courage to pay the price. One has to abandon altogether the search for security and reach out to the risk of living with both arms. One has to embrace the world like a lover. One has to accept pain as a condition of existence. One has to court doubt and darkness as the cost of knowing. One needs a will stubborn in conflict, but apt always to total acceptance of every consequence of living and dying. This is what God is asking us to do, to reach out and embrace the life He's given us, and to let the part of us that needs to die, die, the part of us that needs to live, live, and to let the joy and the rejoicing that can be ours daily be something that guides us. I invite you to abandon the search for security and reach out to the risk of living with both arms. I hope that you've enjoyed our time together. And again, I just ask that if you know of anybody that might benefit from this, please invite them to join us. And I look forward to seeing you again and to be able to share with you on the joy of not being perfect. Have a wonderful day.